Halt! Who goes there? Greetings, I'm King Arthur Black. Welcome to Weird Homes, a show that looks at the most unusual and bizarre homes in North America. A person's home is their castle, right? Most of us feel like that, although, as you can see, some folks take it quite literally. I, for instance, would not go so far as to put a cannon on my roof, but Edward Crowder does. And few of us can boast of living in our own Benedictine monastery. Oh yeah, the regal homeowners you're about to meet are the kings and queens and imperial architects of their own homespun castles. Let's say we pay them a royal visit.
Edward Crowder has a passion for song and cement in equal measure. Bob Elner and Beth Orson were too busy to build a home, so they bought one from Edward. Then there's Sam O'Malanic. He turned a house into a hacienda, and a hacienda into a castle. There's no finer sight than a Spanish grandee surveying his domain. Well, actually, this is Sam O'Malanic in Langley, British Columbia. Before building a home, he and Pam checked out the local Spanish architecture.
And all we saw was some white stucco and a couple of arches. And I thought, that's not a Spanish house. So we said, let's build a real one, as authentic as we can, with beams from the old farm, stucco, rocks, the whole schmear, bricks like the Cordova arches in the old mosque there. Try to be authentic.
Sam was born into the concrete business. He's been playing around in stone and gravel and cement since he was 8 years old. There's not much Sam can't do, providing the local planning department doesn't get in the way.
We went to the township of Langley and asked the building inspector to, well, what sort of regulations have you got on gateways or gate posts? And he said, well, nothing that special that we know of. So I said, okay, I can go ahead and build a gateway, right? Oh, yeah. So they didn't realize I was a big thinker, man. We started up with these Alamo towers and the big concrete arch there with the bell, and they said, hey, what's going on here?
But it was too late. Sam O'Malanic and his Iberian dream was a done deal, a fait accompli. Sam and his 41 arches and columns, all of concrete, all mixed and poured by hand.
I balk at the idea of renting expensive equipment that costs hundreds of dollars an hour. Violates my sense of values. And I think if the Egyptians could do it, we can do it too.
It's been a sweat, and it's been blood, sweat, and tears. Tears when you do Taco Bell, you know. But it's been a hard work project, and everything is solid concrete. I mean, everything has needed a kind of a big shoulder to lift it up.
Every dollar was a sweated dollar. Look at these hands. I mean, I can't even straighten out these fingers. They were stuck into concrete for 40+ years.
I've had a lot of input with a lot of the designs on the house and the inside, but this behind me is not my idea. No way, Jose. Our 19-year-old daughter calls this the Taco Bell. Whose idea was it?
It was mine.
That's not my idea of architecture.
I take full responsibility. It's a great piece of handiwork.
The Taco Bell.
Sam knows what he likes, and this tacky bell is music to his ears.
I think the house represents a combination of our taste. Pam has, done a lot of, most of the choosing on the inside and even the outside. He designed in the garden and all these sort of
He just usually says, yes, dear.
Yeah, I got the last word on everything. Anything you want, boss.
If you build it, they will come. No, not the donkeys, neighbors. And they don't even bother to knock.
Funny thing, all invariably just start walking through the house like it's a museum without being asked. They troop upstairs, poke in every room, go through every room and bathroom and everywhere. And I thought, that's a little forward, but they all do it. And we just accept it.
I feel like a tour guide. I should have a little tape recording and say, right, we'll start in room 1, because people want to know about everything that's in it, and because it's so different, each piece is different, you act like a museum guide.
Okay, Sam, show us room 1.
This is the entrance to our home, filled with an unusual assortment of objects, including the old Canadian flag with the Union Jack incorporated, much beloved by my wife and myself. Here's an exact reproduction of King Richard the Lionheart's sword, which he used in the Holy Land to fight the Muslims, although nowadays we're trying to incorporate peace between the different peoples. Quite a heavy sword, really, to swing. Here's an old suit of armor that the knights used to wear in the old days.
And to Sam, they were clearly the good old days. Sam's home may be located in the New World in the 21st century, but it's a showplace of things medieval. Why, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza could move in here tomorrow. Although they might be a little taken aback by this bathroom.
All right, this is our windmill bathroom here. We got the idea from it, I don't know, for it just came out of the blue, I guess. I started it on an old foundation here that I had an underground garage, which I called Das Führerbunker.
We feel we like to share. I mean, I know what it's like to have lost everything in life and literally have no money. I didn't know where any food was coming from with my 3 children, and to have gone through that, you feel very fortunate, and you look and think, gee whiz, you're a pretty lucky girl. And you don't look at it and say, look what I've got. Not at all.
As Pam says, she likes to share, but there's a limit.
Shoot out! Shoot out!
I say we're like the Beverly Hillbillies, and I'm not joking. I mean, sometimes this chicken has adopted us, and you can be doing something in your fancy Spanish La Cuisina, whatever it's called. You turn around, there's a chicken there, and I thought it's getting, again, more like Mexico.
Sometimes my wife gets exasperated with me. She says, why can't you be just like other normal husbands? She's very English and conventional. I said, well, Pam, if I were like that, we wouldn't be living in a Benedictine monastery and having all these other nutty things, you know. So you got to be yourself. Don't fit yourself into somebody else's mold. Be yourself and express yourself the way you want and the way you're comfortable, and to heck with the world.
Few of us express ourselves as grandly as Sam Omelanik has done. Not many of us have the skill or the grit to write our story in stone.
Well, having worked with stone and heavy objects and concrete all my life, when I go to Crokesville, this is what I'd like to see on my tombstone. Here lies a man of regal worth, yet weighty on him press a worth. For while he lived, he made to rest heavy objects on thy breast.
Amen, Sam. Amen. Bob Elner and Beth Orson weren't looking for a palace. Sure, they were partial to stone and oak, but a castle with a moat? Only in their dreams.
We'd been looking for a house for maybe 6 months in Vancouver, and we were getting really depressed because there was nothing really that appealed to us. And I used to play this game about driving back from work randomly. And one day I turned down Duff Street and saw this house for sale, and it was remarkable, incredibly gothic and dark and somber, and called out to us. And I didn't even look inside, went to the nearest phone box and phoned Beth.
And said, I found the house we're going to buy. And I said, Bob, you haven't even been in it yet.
Now, you have to understand that the interior didn't always look like this. Still, Bob was sold. Beth, she had her doubts.
I thought he was nuts. We wandered in, and this house had been rented to 5 different people. So every single room in the house was a bedroom. So one had no concept of a dining room or a living room or anything.
Well, I guess I saw it a little bit differently from Beth. I'd been drawn by the sort of magnificent Gothic appearance of the exterior, and as we went inside from room to room, I really didn't see the sort of disarray that Beth saw, and I was drawn more and more into the magic of the place.
If Bob needed any more convincing, he found it in the backyard. The place did come with a moat.
And the final climax of that was walking outside and seeing these fish ponds, which I didn't even know existed when we first saw the house from the outside, and the whole thing just seemed to come together like poetry for me, and I just knew it was the place.
The previous owner and builder of Bob and Beth's dream home was this man, Edward Crowder.
When Bob and Eleanor and Beth Orson expressed interest in it, and I realized who they were. I mean, he was into fish because he's head of fisheries, head of biological research at Rifle Bird Sanctuary. So he wanted the fish ponds and so on there. And then Beth, of course, wanted the studio because she plays the oboe for the Vancouver Symphony. And so it was a perfect sale.
Bob and Beth shared Edward's love of peace and harmony, and they're obviously making the most of it.
This is probably the weirdest but most outstanding feature of our house. It's our koi pond. It's 6 feet deep at its deepest, and it takes up at least a quarter of the backyard. There is a life-size statue of Neptune, thanks to Edward Crowder, who built this place and built the pond. It's filled with koi and turtles that we've adopted. We're on a rescue list for turtles in Vancouver. Over here we have a life-size statue of a mermaid, no doubt modeled on a former acquaintance of Edward Crowder's, who built all of the other statues. And she sits right in front of the studio, which is, of course, my favorite spot on this property.
Buying a place that's half aquarium could turn into a monster migraine. Beth made sure they ran it past the powers that be before they laid their money down.
We had 3 guys from the city come through the house, and I told them I wanted them to tell me everything that was not above board, and they were terrific. They were very honest. They said there were certain things, obviously, that wouldn't pass through. They wouldn't be able to get permits for now, but the house was clearly an art house. But mostly, they said that when you have something as unusual as a house like this, they're happy to turn a slight blind eye to things like a ladder going up to a bedroom or a winding staircase with only one banister. So I appreciate that.
They must also have overlooked living wallpaper, bats in the belfry, and did somebody say tombstones in the masonry?
We contacted Edward Crowder about it, and he assured us that it was a tombstone that never actually had been on a grave, and it was actually a mistake, and he'd been able to retrieve it from the stonemason's yard and installed it in the wall, so that was a little bit of a relief.
Most homes don't feature portholes, but this one does. It's a reflection of Bob's 4-year stint in a naval academy.
I think of portholes as the eyes of ships and how much they've seen, and so bringing them into our house is a curiosity, but also it has a romantic edge to it as well, which we enjoy. This is another example of heavy-duty nautical engineering. This 60-inch porthole must weigh somewhere near 100 pounds, and I put it in as a serving hatch between the kitchen into the dining room, so Beth can actually pass the food through. And I've actually got to try and next design some way of actually keeping it up so the food can stay on the window.
Actually, I looked up weird in the dictionary this morning, and part of the definition is unusual or mysterious, and I would definitely say that our house is unusual and mysterious and fantastical and all of those things that make it very special. So sure, it's a weird home.
No, I'll tell you what's weird. Putting out the garbage together. That's weird. When Edward Crowder sold to Beth and Bob, he didn't give up his love of fish ponds. He just moved to the country for a little more elbow room. Edward needed a place where a fella could do his own thing and sing about it. A place where he could be king of the castle.
I will get the master. Welcome to my castle.
Don't let the Count Dracula impersonation fool you. Herr Crowder is really a gentle soul. He just has a fondness for grand gestures.
Defies O mio tesoro, ti vieni a consolare.
Edward is incapable of doing anything in a minor key. He's larger than life and feels equally at home singing before a grand piano or grunting over a cement mixer.
I try to build a home that reflects what I am and what my needs are. And a sense of permanence is very important to me. Now, of course, I know, as you do, that nothing is permanent. That this one day, this house will not exist. It just will not exist. You know, like that wonderful poem of Ozymandias by Shelley, where this big statue out in the desert, all that's left is the head. And yet this statue was erected to a king who ruled the world. Right? But anyway, for this life, here it is. Then over here, the wall continues, as you can see, all the way around here. And you're going to have to imagine this because it's not completed yet. But at the top, where incidentally you can see a wonderful cannon, you might say, well, what is a cannon doing? And does it really fire? Well, I'm not going to tell you whether it fires or not, because then I might have to turn it in as a dangerous weapon. But it's again the idea that a man's home is his castle. It is a place that he has the right to defend. And besides that, I thought it looked kind of unusual and neat.
The front of the house is still waiting for the castle treatment.
What is it that makes a castle, really? Is it the fact that the walls are 12 feet thick and that the thing takes up 3 acres? Or is it an idea? And I think it really is an idea. And it's a wonderful idea, again, of security, of stability. Well, carrying on with the idea of recycling and so on, first thing I did was build a workshop downstairs so that I could take used materials and plane them and make them workable. The windows on the left, they are from a church in England, and I've recycled these from the place in Vancouver. Before I put the house on the market, I made sure that I had those windows out. This wonderful statue over on my left is from Expo. And it was at the entrance to the Indonesian pavilion, and my wife and I bought it as a wedding present. And we were attracted to it because although he's carrying a spear, he's got his little dog at his feet, and he's a wanderer. And so he's a peaceful figure going on a journey. And we feel that we're going on a journey also. The house itself is a kind of journey.
You see all this wood? The staircase, the beams, all recycled from house demolitions. When Edward quit teaching school for a life in music, he and his wife Susan had to find a way to reduce their construction costs.
So on the one hand, I was saving money, I was making use of my time, and on the other hand, I was satisfying a need to stop what I consider to be an absolutely criminal waste in our society. Most of the old houses are made of old growth, and so the wood is far superior to anything you can buy in the lumber yards today, and yet we take it because of being in such a hurry, and we throw it into the garbage dump.
Edward has created an interlocking system of ponds for breeding his rainbow trout. And if they're very, very good, Edward sometimes treats them to a serenade.
Singing opera it's gutsy stuff. It's passionate stuff. It's physical stuff. And it's really quite orgasmic. It's a release, a physical release that leaves you with a wonderful feeling of excitement and being part of the physical world around you. And incidentally, these huge rocks that you're looking at, they are not real rocks. They're all made out of cement. Now here you can see my small trout. They're about 4 or 5 inches long at this point. Whoa, look at that. Do I eat my pets? It sounds awful, doesn't it, when you put it that way? it's like eating your dog or your cat or something. But I don't really think of them as pets in that sense. You know, I don't cuddle them, I don't stroke them, you know, call them names, you know, not that sort of thing. But I think of them as beautiful living creatures who offer to me a certain amount of tranquility. And in return for that, I offer them an environment that is beautiful for the duration of their lives.
Okay, listen up, Fido. I know you're man's best friend. I know you're a loyal member of the Castle Guard, but do you ever think you might be next? No, I'm just kidding. Ed, tell Fido I'm just kidding.
It's about time for a break. Are you just about finished or what?
Yeah, that's it.
Good. So what was wrong with it this time?
Nothing, just a little bit getting older. So I never know. Whenever I turn up here, I never know what I'm going to find.
Music sighing, why deny that I love you?
Now we sigh in soft reply, I love you too. Music says it's simply.
A dinner of fresh rainbow trout is worth dressing up for, and Edward and Susan are never shy about singing for their supper.
Yes, it's true, it's you, I love alone.
Sam and Pam O'Malanic don't dream of castles in Spain. They built one. Edward Crowder taking a break before his next aria. And there's Beth Orson and Bob Elner again. Say goodbye, everybody.
Man, these castle walls would have to be mighty thick if I ever took up singing. I'm Arthur Black. I hope you enjoyed Weird Homes. We'll see you next time.